Chapter 14. The Shadow and the Secret Door. After the lights came back on and the stage was empty, the world collapsed for Raoul. Christine was gone. Raoul didn't know where to go. He ran onto the stage, breathing hard. He knelt on the cold wooden floor, looking between the boards. He searched for a trapdoor, a secret lever, or any opening where Christine could have disappeared. His hands were shaking as he touched the dust and the wood, but he found nothing.
People from the audience and the theater staff looked at him. They whispered to each other and shook their heads. "Look at him," someone said. "Poor young man. He has lost his mind." "He is mad with love," another woman whispered. But Raoul didn't care what they thought. When he realized the stage would not give him any answers, he ran to her dressing room. But it was silent. He called her name, but only the echo answered him. He felt lost and desperate. "I must find her," he whispered. "I know he took her. I know he is hiding her in the deep, dark belly of this theater."
While Raoul was searching the dressing room, there was a big problem in the manager's office. Mr. Richard and Mr. Moncharmin were very angry and afraid. "How is it possible?" Mr. Richard shouted. "A girl cannot just disappear from the stage." "It is a trick," Mr. Moncharmin answered. "Someone is laughing at us." They called Madame Giry, the woman from box 5. She walked into the room slowly. "Where is Christine?" Mr. Richard shouted. "You know where she is. You are the ghost's friend."
Madame Giry shook her head. "I am not his friend. I am his servant. He is more powerful than you think. You think you are safe behind your locked doors?" She stepped closer and looked at Mr. Richard. "The ghost can go anywhere," she whispered. "He can walk through walls. He can take anything from you, even from your own pockets. If he wants your money, he will take it. If he wants a singer, he will take her. Nothing can stop him."
Madame Giry turned and left the room. The manager stayed silent for a moment, but Mr. Richard's face suddenly changed. He remembered the words of the old woman. "He can take anything from you, even from your own pockets." He quickly put his hand on his chest. Earlier that day, Richard had put 20,000 francs in a heavy envelope inside his inner pocket. To be extra safe, he used a large metal pin to close the pocket tightly. He was sure nobody could touch it. He felt the weight of the money there all evening. "My pocket," Richard whispered to Moncharmin. "I used a pin to close it. She cannot know about the money. It's impossible." He tried to laugh to hide his fear. "She is mad," Richard said. "Look, I will show you. The money is safe." He opened his coat. The pin was still there, exactly where he had put it. It was closed and secure. With a confident smile, Richard opened the pin and reached inside his pocket. But suddenly, his smile disappeared. His face turned white, like a ghost. He looked deep into the pocket. Then he turned it inside out. It was empty. "But how?" Richard whispered. He began to tremble. The pin was closed. Nobody came near me. The money was gone. There was no hole, no thief, and no explanation. The managers were still looking at the empty pocket when the door opened. Commissary Mifroid walked in, followed by Raoul. "Gentlemen," the commissary said, "we must talk about the missing singer." Raoul stepped forward and looked the managers in the eyes. I know who took Christine Daae, Raoul said firmly. It was a man who lives under the opera. His name is Eric. The managers looked at each other in surprise. Eric? Who is Eric? People in this opera house whisper about him, Raoul continued. They call him the ghost. They think he is a spirit, but he is real. I saw him at the cemetery in Paros. He is dangerous. He took Christine because he is obsessed with her. Mr. Richard started to tremble. He thought about his empty pocket and the invisible thief. Eric, he whispered, is it possible? Can one man do all these things? Raoul nodded. He knows every secret of this building. We must find his hiding place now. The commissary frowned. He did not believe in ghosts. A man who lives under the opera? He asked. And what were you doing at the cemetery in Paros? Raoul had to explain. Christine and I, we have a history. We were friends when we were children. I love her. I wanted to protect her from this monster, so I planned to take her away. My carriage was waiting near the opera to take us to a safe place. The commissary looked at his notes and nodded. Yes, I saw a carriage, the commissary said. It was driving away very fast after the show. But I don't think a ghost was inside. I think your brother, the Count de Chagny, was there, and maybe he took the girl. Raoul was shocked. My brother? Why? Everyone knows the Count is against your marriage, Mifroid answered calmly. He thinks a singer is not good enough for a Vicomte. Maybe he took her to stop you from making a mistake. Raoul shook his head. No, you don't understand. My brother is a good man, but Eric is a devil. We are losing time. Chapter 15. The Vicomte and the Persian. The Vicomte Raoul left the manager's office. He was frustrated. As he walked through a dark corridor, a shadow moved. It was the Persian. Vicomte, the Persian whispered. I heard you were with the police. What did the commissary say when you told him about Eric? Raoul shook his head. He did not believe me. He thinks my brother took Christine. Nobody understands that Eric is real. I understand, the Persian said, but we must be fast. Follow me. With hope in his heart, Raoul followed him to the basement stairs. They tried to open the heavy wooden doors, but they were locked. The Persian pushed the door, but it did not move. We cannot go this way, the Persian said. Eric has many traps. We must go to Christine's dressing room. They ran back to her room. The Persian went to the large mirror on the wall. He touched a small, hidden part of the frame. He pushed it, but at first, nothing happened. The mirror did not turn. Is it broken? Raoul asked, worried. No, the Persian whispered. It is just old. He pushed again. This time, the mirror moved. It did not open like a normal door. It turned around in a circle, very fast and very silently. One moment they were in the room, and the next moment the mirror turned, and they were on the other side. Behind the glass, there was only a dark, cold corridor. This is it, the Persian said. Welcome to the world of the phantom. Stay close to me, Vicomte. They stepped into the darkness. Chapter 16. The Secrets of the Underground. The Opera House is not just a building for music. Under the stage, there are 5 levels of basements. They are like a dark city under Paris. Historically, these basements were built to protect the building from water. Today, they are full of machines, old costumes, and many secret tunnels. Raoul and the Persian walked quietly through a long corridor on the 3rd level. Suddenly, they saw something strange. Two men were lying on the floor near small windows. "Are they dead?" Raoul whispered, his heart beating fast. "No," the Persian answered. "They are sleeping." From the other side of the wall, they heard a familiar voice. It was Commissary Mifroid. He was talking to his assistant. The police were searching the basements too, but they were in the public area. Raoul and the Persian were behind the walls, in the secret passages.
Life in the basements was busy, just like in the theater above, but it was a different world. Under the stage, many workers lived and worked. Some were responsible for the heavy decorations. Others worked with complex machines to open and close windows and doors on stage. There were also people who created stage effects, like smoke and light. While the singers performed in the lights above, these men worked in the shadows below to create the magic of the opera. The Persian and Raoul continued walking, but then something terrible happened. In the darkness, the Persian and Raoul saw a head. It looked like it was on fire. The eyes were glowing, and it was moving toward them. "Oh," the Persian cried in a low voice, "I see it for the first time. The firefighter, Pampin, was not crazy. He really saw it. What is this fire? Is it a trick? Eric is near. Be careful. Do not forget. Keep your hand in front of your face. For God's sake, keep your hand up." The burning face looked like a demon from hell. It moved closer and closer to the two frightened men. "Maybe Eric sent this face to distract us," the Persian continued. "He wants to attack us from behind. I know many of his tricks, but not this one. Let's go. It is better to be safe than sorry. Run and keep your hand near your eyes." They ran down the dark passage. After a few long minutes, they stopped to breathe. Suddenly, they heard a terrible sound. It was like hundreds of nails scratching a metal door. It was loud and painful. The burning face moved closer. It looked like a blood-red moon floating in the dark. It had no body, only wide eyes and a large mouth. Below the face, something was moving on the floor. It looked like waves of water, but it was alive.
Raoul and the Persian pressed their backs against the wall. They were frozen with fear. The waves reached their feet. They were not water, but thousands of rats. The animals began to climb up their legs with sharp teeth and claws. Raoul and the Persian cried out in pain. Suddenly, the burning face turned to them and spoke. "Don't move. Do not follow me. I am the rat catcher. I am killing the rats. Let me pass." The man turned his lamp away from his face to light the tunnel ahead. He walked away quickly, and the army of rats followed him. The scratching sound disappeared into the darkness. Raoul and the Persian were shaking, but they could breathe again. "I forgot about the rat catcher," the Persian sighed. "Eric told me about him, but I never saw his face. I thought it was another one of Eric's tricks."
"Are we far from the lake?" Raoul asked impatiently. "Let's go! We must find the lake and Christine." The Persian opened his small lamp. They were in a very deep part of the opera, near the giant water machines. Here, the air was cold and wet. Raoul stopped and looked at a massive, dark machine. It made a low, heavy sound. "What is this?" Raoul asked. "It looks like a monster."
"It is a giant water pump," the Persian answered. "The building is very heavy, and the ground here is full of water. These machines work day and night. They pump the water into a special area to keep the foundations dry. This creates a large underground reservoir. We call it the Opera Lake." Raoul looked at the wet walls and felt a shiver. So the lake is real?
Yes, the Persian whispered. The machines collect the water there. It is dark, deep, and silent, and Eric built his house right in the middle of it. Only these machines and the thick walls protect the opera from the lake. Raoul looked around. We are at the very bottom now, the Persian whispered, pointing at the massive walls. Engineers call this place the bath. It is a giant concrete box 15 meters under the ground. Raoul touched the cold stone. A bath? It feels more like a prison. The architect built it to save the opera, the Persian explained. The ground here wanted to swallow the building with water, so he created this bath to keep everything dry and safe. It is as large as a lake and deeper than a tall building. And Eric? Raoul asked, his voice shaking. Is he inside this bath too? Yes, the Persian replied, turning his lamp toward a thick brick wall. Eric found a way to live between these walls. He built his house in the secret space of this giant building. He is living inside the very heart of the opera's foundations. We are close, Vicomte, the Persian said. But from this moment, we must be silent. Eric hears everything. The Persian walked to a thick brick wall and knocked on it. If I am right, the Persian whispered, this wall is part of the house on the lake. Eric's house is inside these double walls. It is a secret room hidden in the heart of the opera. Raoul pressed his ear to the wall. He listened carefully, but he heard nothing. The wall was too thick. Far above them, he could hear the faint footsteps of people in the theater, but here, everything was silent. The Persian turned off his lamp. The darkness returned. Be careful, the Persian said. Do not forget to keep your hand up and stay silent. Now we will try to enter the house. The Persian led the way through a very narrow and low corridor. We must be quiet, he whispered. The tunnel became even smaller. The Persian and Raoul had to walk on their knees. It was difficult to breathe, and the walls were very close. Finally, they saw a small hole in the floor. Jump, the Persian said quietly. They stepped inside. The Persian turned on his lamp, and Raoul gasped. They were in a strange room with 6 sides. The walls were made of glass and mirrors. In the corners of the room, there were iron trees. It looked like a forest, but everything was cold and dead. Where are we? Raoul asked. His voice was full of fear. Is this Eric's house? No, the Persian answered sadly. This is not his house. This is his torture chamber. Eric built this room to play with his victims. The mirrors, the lights, and the heat, they make people go crazy. We are in a terrible trap, Vicomte. Chapter 16. The Persian's Story. I know Eric, he said quietly. I knew him many years ago in a far country, in Persia. There he was a famous architect and a magician. He built wonderful palaces for the Sultan. But he was also dangerous. He knew too many secrets, and he hurt many people with his traps. The Sultan wanted to kill Eric because he was afraid of him. But I helped Eric. I helped him escape and run away. It was a mistake. When Eric came to Paris, I felt responsible. I brought a dangerous man to this city, and I had to watch him. I moved to Paris to protect people from Eric's dark magic. I am the only person who knows his face and his tricks. I followed him to the opera to stop him before he hurt someone again. Raoul looked at him, surprised. So you were looking for him all this time? Yes, the Persian answered. I watched him for months. I tried to find his house under the opera. One night, I followed Eric to the lake, the Persian continued. I saw him in his small boat. He was crossing the dark water toward the wall. Then he disappeared into the shadows. I could see nothing. It was like he walked through the stone. I waited for Eric to leave. When he was gone, I took a boat and went to the same wall. Suddenly, I heard a sound. It was a song. It was the most beautiful voice I ever heard, like a siren from an old legend. The music was sweet and sad. It called to me. I wanted to see the singer. I looked deep into the dark water. I leaned over the side of my boat, and then someone grabbed my neck. Strong hands pulled me down into the cold water. I couldn't breathe. Suddenly, a hand pulled me up. It was Eric. He acted like he was saving my life. He looked into my eyes and said very strictly, "Do not come here again. Never try to find my house. If you return, you will stay in the water forever." That was his warning. He didn't want me to know that the siren was just another one of his tricks. One day, while I was searching the dark corridors, I saw a strange group. It was Eric, Christine, and a horse. It was Caesar, a white horse from the opera stables. Christine looked very ill. Her eyes were closed, and she didn't move. She was unconscious. Eric was holding her and cleaning her face with cold water. He looked worried, but also very angry. When Eric saw me in the shadows, he didn't say a word. He was incredibly fast. He hit me hard, and everything went black. I fainted. When I woke up much later, the corridor was empty. Eric, Christine, and the horse were gone. There was no sound, only the cold wind in the tunnel. I was alone again, and I knew that Eric was more powerful than a normal man. "But how did he talk to her in her room?" Raoul asked. "I heard his voice, but no one was there." The Persian smiled sadly. "Eric is a master of machines. I studied the wall in Christine's dressing room. I found a secret mechanism, a system of hidden tubes. When Eric speaks into a tube in the basement, his voice travels to the room above." "It sounds like a ghost in the air, but it is only a trick. He used this to teach Christine and to make her afraid." "He is not a ghost," Raoul whispered. "He is a man who knows too much." "I was very confused," the Persian continued, his eyes fixed on the mirrors. "I saw Christine leave the house on the lake and return many times. No one forced her. She walked freely, like she was in a dream. I asked myself, why? Why does she stay with this monster? But I didn't stop searching. One day, I hid behind some old theater decorations in the basement. I waited for many hours in the silence. Suddenly, I saw him. Eric was crawling on the floor like an animal. He didn't see me. He went to a stone wall and pressed a small spring. A secret door opened, and he disappeared inside. Now I knew his secret. I knew how to enter his house. But I was afraid. I remembered poor Joseph Bouquet, who died in these tunnels. I decided to wait. I watched you and Christine from the shadows, too. I saw that you loved her, and I saw that she loved you. But Eric had her mind. He played with her soul like a musician. I knew then, if Eric discovers that Christine does not love him, he will be very dangerous. He could do something terrible. That is why I am here, Raoul. I am ready to stop him. I will even kill him. Raoul leaned against the mirror wall. He was tired and scared. "Persian," he said, "we are trapped. Can you finally tell me why we walked like soldiers? Why did I have to keep my hand near my face all the time? The Persian looked at the dark ceiling. Because Eric is not just an architect, Raoul. He is a deadly shadow. In Persia, I saw him fight. He is a master of the Punjab lasso. The Punjab lasso? Raoul asked. What is that? It is a thin, strong rope, the Persian whispered. Eric can throw it from 30 feet away in total darkness. You cannot hear it, you cannot see it. It travels through the air like a snake and closes around your neck. In 1 second, it is over. The Persian lifted his own arm to show the position again. I asked you to keep your hand up for a reason. If the rope flies toward you, it hits your arm first. Your arm stops the rope from touching your neck. You can then pull the rope away and stay alive. Eric wanted to kill us in the corridors, but your hand protected you. He is a master of machines, but he is also a master of death. Chapter 17. Inside the Torture Chamber. The room was silent, like a grave. Raoul and the Persian stood in the center of the six-sided room. The mirrors on the walls showed hundreds of Raouls and hundreds of Persians. It was impossible to know where the door was.
"We are in the mirror forest now," the Persian whispered. "Do not move. Do not speak. Eric is very close." They waited. The silence was heavy. Then a low sound came from the other side of the wall. It was a man's voice. Behind the wall, Eric was speaking. His voice was sad and strange. "I am tired of living under the ground like a mole," Eric said. "I want to live like a normal man. I want to have a wife and walk with her on Sundays. I have a mask now. I can look like everyone else. If you love me, Christine, I will be kind. I only need love to be good. Please, do not be afraid of me." Then Eric began to cry. His sobs were loud and terrible, like the sound of the ocean. "You do not love me! You do not love me!" he cried 3 times. Christine said nothing. She was silent. Suddenly, an electric bell rang. Eric jumped up. "Someone is at the door." Eric laughed a dark, scary laugh. "Wait for me here. I must go and open the door. The siren will help me." They heard Eric's footsteps walk away. A door closed. Eric was gone. Christine was alone in the next room. Raoul could not wait any longer. He pressed his face to the wall and called out, "Christine! Christine! Can you hear me?" Raoul called out again and again. Finally, a weak voice answered from behind a wall. "Is it a dream?" Christine whispered. "Raoul, is it really you?" "Yes, it is me. It is not a dream," Raoul cried. "We are here to save you. Where are you, Christine?" "I am in the bedroom," she replied. "But you must leave. Eric is crazy. He wants me to marry him tomorrow at 11 o'clock. If I say no, he says everyone will die. He calls it the choice between the wedding song and the funeral song." "We cannot leave you," Raoul shouted. "Where is the door? We are on the other side." "I can see a door," Christine said, "but Eric told me never to touch it. He said it is the most dangerous door in the world. It is the door to the torture chamber." "We are inside that room now," the Persian said, "but there is no door on our side. It is hidden behind the mirrors. Christine, can you open it?" "I can't move," Christine sobbed. "I am tied up. My hands and feet are not free." Raoul and the Persian were furious. "Listen to me, mademoiselle," the Persian said quickly.
We need the key. Do you know where it is?"
"Yes," Christine answered. "It is near the organ, in a small leather bag. Eric calls it the bag of life and death. There are 2 keys inside. But please, Raoul, go away. This place is terrible." "No," Raoul said firmly. "We leave together or we die together." "Be calm," the Persian whispered to Raoul. "We must wait for the right moment." Through the wall, they heard the heavy steps of the monster. Eric was back, and he was wet. "Forgive me, Christine," Eric said. His voice was dark. "A man rang my bell. He will never ring it again. The water of the lake is very deep." Christine trembled, but she remembered the Persian's advice. "Eric, please, my arms hurt. Untie me. You gave me time until tomorrow night. I cannot run away." "You are right," Eric sighed. "Everything will end soon anyway. I will untie you." Raoul and the Persian listened with bated breath. A moment later, Raoul whispered, "She is free! Her hands are free!" But then the house began to shake. Eric sat at his great organ and began to sing a requiem, a song for the dead. It was loud and terrible, like a storm under the earth. He sang like a god of thunder. The mirrors in the torture chamber vibrated with the music. Suddenly, the music stopped. There was a cold, sharp silence. "Christine," Eric's voice was now thin and angry. "What did you do with my bag? Where is my bag of life and death?" Chapter 18. The Game of Keys. Eric stood in the middle of the room, his eyes dark and angry. "The bag, Christine," he shouted. "Where is my small leather bag? I left it here, near the organ." Christine's heart was beating fast. She had the bag in her hand, hidden behind her back. She knew that the bronze key inside was the only way to open the door to the torture chamber. I don't know, Eric," she whispered. "Maybe it fell on the floor." Eric looked at her suspiciously. He moved closer, like a cat watching a bird. "Do not lie to me, Christine. That bag holds life and death. If you have the key to that door, you are in great danger." "Why are you so worried about that room?" Christine asked, trying to be brave. "I don't have the keys, Eric. I don't know where they are," Christine cried. She tried to look calm, but her hands were shaking. Eric did not believe her. He searched the room and quickly found the small leather bag. His face became pale and terrifying. "If you took the keys, it means someone is inside," Eric shouted. "Someone is in the torture chamber." He grabbed a ladder and pushed it against the wall. At the top of the wall, there was a small, dark window. "Climb up," Eric commanded. "Look through the window and tell me what you see." Eric turned a switch, and suddenly the torture chamber was filled with bright electric light. Christine climbed the ladder, her heart pounding. She looked through the glass. There, in the middle of the mirrors, she saw Raoul. Her eyes filled with tears, but she knew she must be brave. She turned back to Eric and tried to speak in a steady voice. "I see nothing, Eric," she said. "The room is empty. There is only the mirrors. No one is there." Eric looked at her for a long time. He wanted to believe her, but his heart was full of suspicion. Eric's behavior changed. He looked like he was losing his mind. He began to speak, but his mouth did not move. It was ventriloquism, a trick where the voice comes from the stomach. The sound grew louder and louder. It filled the house like a dark cloud. Eric laughed and talked about strange things.
Do you remember Carlotta, the toad? He hissed. And what about the scorpion and the grasshopper? One is for life, and one is for death. Choose, Christine, choose. Christine did not understand his words, but the sound of his voice was terrifying. She covered her ears and screamed. "Stop it, Eric! Please stop!" she begged. Finally, the silence returned. Christine was pale and exhausted. "Please don't do that again," she whispered. "I am so tired. And why is it so hot? It is becoming very difficult to breathe." Eric looked at the wall of the torture chamber and smiled a cold, thin smile. "Yes," he answered quietly. "It is hot because the room next to us is heating up. The sun is rising in the mirror forest, Christine. A very hot sun." The heat was growing. Raoul touched a mirror and quickly pulled his hand away. "Persian, it's burning! Why is this happening? Is it magic?" "No, Raoul, it is not magic," the Persian answered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It is a science, a terrible invention by Eric. He calls it the mirror forest. Look at the walls. There are 6 of them, and they are perfect mirrors. They reflect these iron trees millions of times." "But I feel like I am in a real forest," Raoul shouted, looking around at the endless trees. "Why can't I see the door? Where is the exit?" "You cannot see the exit because your eyes are confused," the Persian explained. "The mirrors hide the corners of the room. You see only distance, but there is no distance, only glass." "And the sun?" Raoul asked, pointing to the blinding light above. "Why is it so hot? I feel like I am in the middle of Africa." "Behind the glass, Eric has hundreds of electric lamps," the Persian whispered. "He is heating the iron and the mirrors. The light makes you blind, and the heat makes you thirsty. Soon your brain will start to play tricks. You will see things that are not here." "Like what?" Raoul asked, his voice trembling. "You will see lakes, fruit, and cool water. You will run to drink, but you will only hit the hot glass. You will run until you fall. That is Eric's plan, Raoul. He wants us to go crazy before we die." Raoul was in shock. The bright light was blinding him, and he covered his eyes with his hands. "We must go back," he shouted. "Let's go back to the corridor." The Persian looked up at the ceiling. High above them, the trapdoor was closed. It was a dark square in the middle of the blinding light. "It is impossible, Raoul," the Persian said quietly. His voice was grim. "The trapdoor is too high. We cannot jump that far, and there are no ladders here. We cannot go back the way we came." Raoul looked around the burning room. "Then we are trapped? We are going to die here?" "Not yet," the Persian replied. He began to walk slowly along the mirrors, his eyes fixed on the glass. "There is only one way out. We must find the secret door that leads to Eric's room. It is here somewhere behind these reflections. Eric uses it, so it exists." The Persian ignored the heat. He ignored the fake trees. He started to examine every mirror, inch by inch. He pressed his fingers against the glass, looking for a small crack, a hidden button, or a spring. "Stay calm, Raoul," he whispered. "Don't look at the light. Look for the door. Our lives depend on a single piece of glass." Raoul was losing control. The heat and the bright light were too strong for him. He began to walk around the room without a plan, hitting the mirrors with his hands. "Christine!" he screamed. "I am here! I don't care about the heat. I am ready to die for you. If my death can save you, then let me die." He was delirious. He didn't understand what was real anymore, but his love for Christine was the only thing in his mind. "Take my life, Eric!" he shouted at the mirrors. "Take me, but let her go!"
Finally, his legs became weak. The floor was burning, and he could not stand anymore. He fell to the hot ground and lay there, closing his eyes. In his mind, he was no longer in the torture chamber. He was back in the cool garden with Christine, giving her his last breath. The Persian did not stop. He knew from his past experience that they had very little time. Eric's traps always worked fast. Suddenly, the Persian stopped. He heard something. Thump, thump, thump. It was the sound of footsteps. They were slow and heavy. They were coming from the other side of the mirror wall. Eric was there, only a few inches away. The Persian moved his hands faster across the glass, feeling the heat, looking for the one secret spring that could save their lives. "Just one more minute," the Persian whispered to himself. "I just need one more minute." The Persian was on his knees, touching every inch of the floor. Suddenly, his fingers felt something different. It was small and hard. "A nail," he whispered. "A black nail."
He knew Eric's secrets. A black nail on the floor was never just a nail. It was a hidden button. It was part of a secret mechanism. The Persian pressed the nail with all his strength. He expected a door to open in the wall, but he was wrong. Instead, a part of the floor opened near him. It was a secret trapdoor. Immediately, cool, fresh air came out of the dark hole. It felt like a miracle after the terrible heat of the mirror forest. The Persian reached his hand into the darkness. He didn't feel empty space. He felt cold, hard stone. Then another stone, a little lower. "Stairs," he whispered to the unconscious Raoul. "It's a staircase." It was not the way to Eric's room, but it was a way out of the heat. The stairs led down, deep into the shadows. They walked down the stairs into a dark, cold room. At first, they could see nothing. They stood still and waited for their eyes to adapt to the darkness. Then the Persian turned on his small flashlight. In the light, they saw rows of small barrels. There were dozens of them, standing in two long lines. "What is this place?" Raoul whispered, his voice still weak. "Is it a wine cellar?" "Maybe," the Persian replied. He looked at the size of the barrels. "They are small. Eric probably brings them here alone. Maybe there is water inside? Or wine?" They were very thirsty, so they decided to open one. The Persian used his tools to remove the wooden plug from a barrel. They expected to see liquid, but nothing poured out. Raoul held out his hands under the hole. A dry, black dust fell into his palms. The Persian moved his flashlight closer to Raoul's hands. His face became pale with terror. "It is not wine, Raoul," the Persian whispered, "and it is not water. It is gunpowder," the Persian said. "The whole room is full of it. We are standing on a giant bomb. If Eric wants, he can blow up the entire opera house in 1 second." The Persian looked at the black dust in Raoul's hands and suddenly understood everything. "The wedding march or the funeral march," he whispered. "What do you mean?" Raoul asked. He didn't understand. "Eric's words to Christine," the Persian cried. "Now I understand his plan. This is his final joke. If Christine says yes and marries him, it is the wedding march. They live. But if she says no..." The Persian looked at the dozens of barrels around them. "If she says no?"
It is the funeral march. Eric plans to light this gunpowder and blow up everything. He will kill himself, he will kill Christine, he will kill us, and he will destroy the whole opera house. Everyone will die together. Raoul looked at the ceiling in horror. Above them, in the next room, Christine was making her choice. She didn't know that her answer was the trigger for a giant bomb. Their lives were in her hands, and she didn't even know it.
Chapter 19. The Scorpion or the Grasshopper. The Persian and Raoul climbed back up the stairs. They returned to the mirror forest, but everything was different now. The bright electric lights were off. The room was black and silent. "We must know the time," the Persian whispered. "We need to know how many minutes we have left before the explosion." Raoul took out his pocket watch, but he couldn't see the numbers in the dark. In a moment of hopelessness, he broke the glass of his watch. He touched the metal hands of the clock with his fingers to feel their position. "It is almost 11, Raoul cried. At that moment, they heard a voice behind the wall. It was Christine. She was crying and talking fast. She sounded lost and terrified. "Christine, it's us! We are here!" Raoul shouted. "Raoul, is it you?" she gasped. "I am alone now. Eric is waiting for my answer. He is acting like a madman. One minute he is laughing, and the next he is angry. He says if I don't choose, the whole opera will blow up with everyone inside." "Christine, what time is it there?" the Persian asked. "It is 5 minutes to 11, she replied. "He wants me to turn the scorpion or the grasshopper. I don't know what to do. Everything is a blur. The choice, the explosion, the people. Help me." Eric returned to the room. He looked at the clock and then at Christine. "It is almost 11, Christine. You have less than 2 minutes. Choose now." He pointed to the 2 bronze figures. "The scorpion or the grasshopper? If you turn the scorpion, you say yes to me. We will be married and everyone in the opera will live. But if you refuse, I will turn the grasshopper. The grasshopper jumps high, Christine, and many people will die." Eric's voice was dark and low. In the cellar, there is enough gunpowder to destroy everything. One wrong move, and the world ends. Christine's hands were shaking, but she made her choice. She reached out and turned the scorpion. Downstairs, Raoul and the Persian heard a strange noise. It was not an explosion. It was the sound of rushing water. "Water!" the Persian cried with joy. "Eric is filling the cellar with water. The gunpowder is wet now. We are safe. The opera is safe." They ran to the trapdoor and began to go down the stairs to drink. But their joy did not last long. The water did not stop. It filled the barrels, it filled the cellar, and soon it began to come up through the trapdoor into the torture chamber. The water rose higher and higher, to their knees, to their chests, to their necks. "Eric! Christine! Stop the water!" they shouted, hitting the mirrors. But there was no answer. The house was silent. The water continued to rise, filling the room of mirrors completely. The Last Song of the Phantom. In the next room, Christine was on her knees. She could hear the terrible sound of the water behind the wall. She knew that Raoul and the Persian were drowning. "Eric, stop!" she cried, grabbing his clothes. "I turned the scorpion. I said yes. You promised that they would live." Eric looked at her. His eyes were cold, but he saw the tears on her face. "They are in the water, Christine. It is a cold bath for your little vicomte." "Please, Eric, have mercy," Christine begged.
If they die, I will never be your wife. I will never sing for you again. Save them now, or you will lose me forever." Eric stood silent for a long moment. He looked at the clock. It was past 11. The danger for the opera was over, but the danger for the men in the mirrors was real. "Very well," Eric whispered. "I will keep my promise. But remember, Christine, from this moment, you belong to me."
He walked to the wall and pressed a hidden lever. Slowly, the sound of the rushing water changed. It began to go down. Eric opened the secret door, and a wall of water fell into his room. Among the wet mirrors and cold iron trees, the Persian and Raoul lay on the floor. They were not moving. "Take them," Eric said to Christine. "They are alive, but they are broken." When the secret door finally opened, Raoul and the Persian were unconscious. Their bodies were cold and heavy from the water. Eric pulled them out of the wet room and carried them into his house. For several days, they stayed in the house on the lake. Christine and Eric looked after them like ghosts. Raoul did not wake up at all. He was in a deep, dark sleep. The Persian woke up sometimes for a few minutes. Through his tired eyes, he saw Christine. She was different. Her face was pale, and her eyes were full of sadness. Most importantly, she was silent. She did not say a single word. The Persian tried to ask a question, but she only put a finger to her lips. He understood. This was her promise to Eric. Silence in exchange for their lives. One morning, the Persian opened his eyes and felt a soft bed. He was not in the opera anymore. He was in his own home. "How did I get here?" he asked his servant. "I don't know, sir," the servant replied. "I found you outside our door this morning. A mysterious man brought you here in a carriage, but he left before I could see his face." The Persian looked at the window. He was safe, but he felt a cold weight in his heart. He knew that the story of the opera ghost was not over yet. Many people in Paris asked, "Where is the Vicomte de Chagny? Where is the famous singer Christine Daae?" The truth was hidden deep underground. Eric kept his word, but he saw that Christine was dying of sadness. He couldn't watch her suffer anymore. One night, Eric let them go. He gave them his blessing and told them to run far away from Paris. Raoul and Christine traveled to the north, to the land where the air is cold and the sea is blue. They lived a quiet life, far from the lights of the opera. Christine never sang for the public again, and Raoul never spoke about the mirror room. And Eric? The Persian later found out that the phantom died of a broken heart. He died alone in his house on the lake, surrounded by his music and his shadows. He was a monster to the world, but in the end, he learned how to love.